Hello, dear viewers. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. If you're interested in this type of content, please subscribe. I would be grateful to you. Let's move on to the story. On the outskirts of a rundown suburb stood an old, abandoned house. Strange rumors circulated about it among the locals. They said that ghosts and curses dwelled within its walls. But for a little girl named Emily, these were just scary tales told to frighten her. Emily was an ordinary girl with a sensitive heart and a vivid imagination, but her childhood was marked by events that left a lasting impact on her soul. In her first grade at a new school, Emily encountered a group of children who began to bully her. They called her strange, a loner, and told spooky stories about the house on the edge of town, claiming that ghosts lurked there, searching for new playthings. At first, Emily tried to ignore their words, but as the bullying escalated, she began to believe them. She started avoiding the house on the outskirts and hid from her classmates. But it seemed that the more she hid, the stronger the fear gripped her. One day after school, as Emily walked home along her usual route, she had to pass by the mysterious house. Night was beginning to fall, and the strange shadows seemed increasingly ominous. But she resolved to overcome her fear and walk straight through the yard of the house. Suddenly, she heard rustling in the leaves and froze in place. Her heart began to beat faster as she looked around, trying to understand where the sound was coming from. But seeing nothing, she decided it was just her imagination playing tricks on her and continued. She was almost at the edge of the yard when something suddenly grabbed her hand. Emily screamed and recoiled, and when she turned around, all she saw were the dark trees swaying in the wind. Her heart pounded harder, and she dashed forward until she was out from up. She made it home, trembling all over, and told her parents what had happened. They reassured her, saying it was just her imagination, but Emily knew something strange had occurred. From that day on, Emily began to have strange dreams. In her dreams, she found herself in the dark house, surrounded by shadows and cold. She heard footsteps and whispers, but couldn't make out where they were coming from. Every time she woke up, her heart was pounding so hard that it took her a long time to calm down. Her parents started to notice her strange behavior. They sought help from a psychologist, but even after several therapy sessions, nothing changed. The dreams continued to haunt Emily, and the fear of the house on the outskirts only grew. One day, determined to confront her fears, Emily gathered her old flashlight and decided to embark on an exploration of the mysterious house. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe, but she was resolute. She no longer wanted to be the girl who was bullied and frightened. When she reached the door of the house, she felt her chest tighten with fear. But she swallowed her fear and opened the door. Inside, it was dark and cold, and the air was heavy with the scent of age and horror. But Emily pressed on, exploring room after room until she finally reached the top floor. There, she discovered a room with strange drawings and symbols covering the walls. Her heart raced as she inspected the room more closely and noticed a strange mirror standing in the corner. She approached the mirror and looked into it. At first, everything seemed normal, but then she noticed her reflection beginning to distort. She screamed and recoiled, but it was too late. A dark figure emerged from the mirror, cloaked in shadow, and moved toward Emily. She tried to run, but her legs felt as though they were glued to the floor. She closed her eyes and screamed as the figure leaned in close and whispered something terrifying in her ear. Emily woke up in her bed, trembling and sweating. She looked around and realized it had all been just a dream. But the fear still gripped her, and she knew that the abandoned house on the outskirts would forever be a part of her life. Since then, several years have passed, and Emily has grown into a young woman. She still lived in the same small town, but tried to avoid memories of that terrifying day in the abandoned house on the outskirts. After graduating from high school, Emily went to college and moved away to study in another city. The new environment, new acquaintances, and engaging activities helped her forget the past. She tried to live life to the fullest, forgetting about what happened in her childhood. However, despite all her efforts, the past caught up with her once again. She still had the same strange dreams, and the fear returned with them. Every time she woke up, Her heart was pounding so hard that it took her a long time to calm down. One day, while returning home for the holidays, Emily accidentally ran into her old childhood friend, Jake. He had also returned to town for the holidays, and they decided to meet up and catch up. During their conversation, Emily told Jake about her strange dreams and the terrifying day in the abandoned house on the outskirts. Jake listened attentively, and then he said that he remembered that day too. It turned out that Jake was one of those who bullied Emily in her childhood, but now he regretted it and tried to make amends. He said he knew what was in that house on the outskirts and suggested they go there together to figure out what happened. Emily was initially hesitant about Jake's proposal, but she eventually agreed. She realized that it might be the key to unraveling the mystery of her strange dreams and fears. So one evening, they set off for the abandoned house. As they approached it, Emily felt the old fear creeping back over her. But Jake was by her side, offering his support and helping her overcome her fear. When they entered the house, Emily felt the memories of that day flooding back. They walked through the corridors and rooms until they finally reached the top floor. There, they discovered the same room with the mirror where it all began. Emily shuddered when she saw the mirror. She stood before it, wondering what to do next. Jake came up beside her and took her hand, as if reassuring her. They looked into the mirror, and suddenly it began to glow with a dark light. The same dark figure emerged from it, but this time it didn't seem as terrifying. Instead, it began to slowly dissolve, as if evaporating into the air. Emily and Jake stood there, watching in awe, and suddenly realized that the fear they had felt was just an illusion. The dark figure was a part of their past, and now they were free from it. As the figure completely disappeared, the mirror stopped glowing, and the room returned to its normal state. Emily and Jake embraced, feeling the relief washing over them. They left the abandoned house behind, leaving behind all their fears and memories. Now they knew that nothing could hold them back in the past, and they were ready to move forward, embracing the new challenges and opportunities that awaited them in the future. Back in town, Emily and Jake shared their story with their parents and friends. They had finally closed this chapter of their lives and started anew. And though they were no longer children, they understood that each of them had the power to overcome their fears and find their own path to happiness and fulfillment.